This is the first part of my prison stories. This is how I kicked methadone in the feds, and I'm probably going to make this the whole federal prison thing like a 10-part video. I just want to say I've been getting a lot of comments about Suboxone use, and I'm not a sobriety guru, okay? I've had 3 years of total sobriety off Suboxone and everything, and that was the best 3 years of my life. So if you're struggling with addiction, my recommendation is to use methadone or Suboxone to get off of the heroin and then be completely sober. I think that's the absolute best remedy for sobriety. The maintenance stuff, I'm just in a position where I need it right now. I'm feeling super shaky. I just got this last prison term, the last 16 months I did was hellacious. I'll get to that in later videos, but it was pretty bad. I got 3 broken ribs. I got 8 stitches. I was involved in a 60-man riot. I was involved with a bunch of smaller riots called melees. It was a really, really, really bad term for me. And I got out and I was just feeling super shaky. So I got back on Suboxone, and right now it's helping me be a dad, and it's helping me. I don't shoot it anymore. The only reason that I posted videos, YouTube took down one of my videos and demonetized me, like some of my videos, because I posted one of me shooting Suboxone in 2016. I do not recommend that. I hope you don't think I glorify drugs. That's not my intention at all. I've been through quite a bit with my addiction and with prison, and I know I'm telling a bunch of these wild stories now. If you look at the timeline of my life, we're only at age 23 right now. I'm 34. So much has happened since the earlier stories that I've told you, and right now I'm going to go really deep into the prison stuff. So I just wanted to say I do not advocate shooting Suboxone. I'm taking it sublingually. People ask all the time. I take 1 to 3 8-milligram strips a day, depending on how I'm feeling. And I smoke herb at night. And I don't recommend that for sobriety. I really don't. I think you should it's like all or nothing. That's the best I ever was when it was like that for me. So I apologize if I triggered anyone, or if anyone thinks that I'm like romanticizing or glorifying addiction. It's definitely not my intention. I do have a goal to foster positivity, but I think that it's important to get through all these crazy stories first, and then we can get into like sobriety and get more into positive stuff. People have been asking me about donations, and I think that's really cool. I never even put thought into it. Right now, I have a 17-month-old toddler. I'm doing a lot of creative projects. I'm doing freelance writing, but I live in LA and it's super expensive. I'm going to leave my PayPal email address in the description. If you want to send me a donation, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll give you a shout out. If you do $100 or more donation to PayPal, I'll give you a thank you in the credits of Idiot Savant, The Savage Life of Ryan Leone. It should come out next year. I'll actually put you in the credits for $100 or more donation. And we've put $100,000 into the documentary, but we're about 50,000 short. We still have some miscellaneous music rights stuff. So I'm looking for money right now, and I'm sure we'll get it. We already got some people to contribute, the 100,000 that we've already put into it. But right now I'm selling executive producer credits for $5,000. So for every 5,000, I'll give you 1% of the gross of the film, and I'll give you an executive producer credit on a film that's going to be written by Jim Uhls, screenwriter of Fight Club, narrated by the actor Nick Stahl, produced by a bunch of pretty big producers. And you can come to all the film festivals with us, and you'll be a producer. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave my email address. Please send me inquiries if you're interested. And my attorney is Oliver Stone's attorney. She produced a bunch of the Saw movies. If you're really interested, it'll be a real contractual thing. You'll be an executive producer. It'll help you get your foot in the door, and we can go do all the festivals and go to all the after parties and be a good time. So if you want to donate, my PayPal will be in the description. If you want to invest in the film, 5,000 is the minimum and 50,000 is the maximum. For every 5,000, 1 point of gross profit participation, plus you'll be a producer. If you believe in my story and you think it's going to be a big thing, it's going to be, we'll get it on the streaming networks, we'll get a limited theatrical release, it'll be cool. So anyway, this is part 1 of my 5 years in federal prison kicking methadone. So I had to turn myself in, and one of my good friends drove me down there. I had the balloon up my ass with like 8 grams of heroin, some methadone, some Seroquel, and I did a speedball in the parking lot. and I went to the U.S. Marshal building in downtown LA, and I turned myself in. So I go in there, and I have to take my belt off, shoes. It's like being at the airport. You put everything on a conveyor belt, and that's like the security checkpoint at the U.S. Marshal's office. So after I did that, I go, hey, I'm here to surrender. Where do I go? Oh, go to this floor. You know, it's like the 10th floor or something. So I get on the elevator. I go up there, knock on the door. There's a U.S. Marshal. I go, hey, I'm Ryan Leone. I'm here to surrender. He's like, okay, great. Just sit in the waiting room, read a magazine, and we'll get you. I'm like, okay. And of course, I'm like engulfed in anxiety. Like it's just like a hot, almost palpable feeling where I just know that like something bad's about to happen. And finally he comes and gets me. He leads me to this door and he goes, okay, put your hands behind your back. And he opens this door and kind of pushes me into this hallway. And there's the instantaneous, recognizable institutional scent, like that smell that only like jail or like a psych ward smells like. And I realized that I'm like in some sort of jail because there's a guard and he's ushering me down this hallway. I'm looking and there's different cells and like they're all holding tanks for court. It's like, you know, when you go to court, like on the state level, it's like the little dungeon that they leave you in while you're waiting to go to court. And they lead me to a cell. I'm wearing dress clothes, right? And there's a bunch of inmates wearing green scrubs, like real hardcore convict looking guys that have like their face blasted, you know, Southsiders, like, hey, what's up, fool? You know, those kind of people. They see me in my street clothes. They're like, damn, you're just coming in from the street. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what'd you get busted for? I'm like, I got caught with a half pound of heroin twice. They're like, oh shit, you're hit. And they start telling me all these horror stories. And I'm like, where am I right now? They're like, you're at MDC Los Angeles. So it stands for Metropolitan Detention Center Los Angeles. It's located in downtown LA. It's like a 9-floor building, and each floor has 2 units. So like there's 7 South, 7 North, 8 North, 8 South, and so on and so forth. And they're telling me, yeah, I've been in custody for 5 years at this detention center. There are people that have been at this detention center 10 years fighting their case because feds try to give so many people life sentences. They start telling me horror stories about the federal system, this guy's telling me how he's about to get 50 years and he didn't even get caught with drugs called ghost dope just because some rat gave a testimony saying that he sold him a certain amount of meth. Now he's about to get 50 years in prison. It's called ghost dope. They don't even need the tangible drug evidence to convict you. I'd never heard of that. This is like, before you're in the federal system, you don't even really realize how severe some of these federal drug laws are. And I'm telling them, I'm like, I got Michael Jackson's attorney. I'm about to bail out. I'm going to do an equity bail. And they're like, dude, you're not going to get bail. They don't give bail to people in the feds. It's very rare unless you're a snitch. I'm like, I don't know. He told me that I'm going to get an equity bond. So I'm in there for a few hours and they end up bringing me to a magistrate. So I see my attorney. He's like, hey, Ryan. He leans into me. He's like, okay, this is the magistrate. If he denies you for bail, don't freak out. I can put you on calendar in 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks? I'm like, dude, I'm on 180 milligrams of methadone. I'm on 6 milligrams of Xanax, 11 grams of heroin a day. I'm on a gargantuan amount of drugs. The kick is literally going to kill me. He's like, don't worry. You might get it right now, but if not, 2 weeks. And I'm just like, so the magistrate is like, Mr. Leone, looking through your file, you have a long history of drugs and violence, and you're only 23 years old. You're a threat to the community, and you're a flight risk. Bail denied. And I'm like, wait, what? Wait, I'm not getting bail? And he's like, don't worry, 2 weeks. And I remember the reality just hit me all at once, just like, it was like a slap in the face. And I started crying right in the courtroom, tears just streaming down my face. And I'm like, oh my God. And the guard is taking me back to the holding tank. And he's like, hey man, you got to straighten up. These other inmates can't see you crying like that. They're going to eat you alive, man. And I'm just like, fuck. So I wipe my eyes and I go back into this holding cell. And I'm like, hey man, how hardcore is like the searching process? Like, what if you have something on you? And they're like, well, they make you squat and cough, but it's beatable. Why, you got something? If you got something, I'll bring it in for you and just break me off. No, I'll shoot it to you. I'm like, no, I don't have anything. So I go to the toilet and I take this, it's called a plug. Anything that you stick up your ass with drugs, it's like that big. And I had this plug and I take it out and there's a big ass hole in it. And there's like powder coming out. I put methadone in it, 8 grams of heroin, some Seroquel, some Xanax. And I crushed up all the powder. So I couldn't even, differentiate between the powders. I didn't know what was what. So I had to find something to like repair the hole. The only thing I could find was a Kool-Aid wrapper that was like made out of foil. So I take the Kool-Aid wrapper, it like came with someone's lunch, and I like kind of, patch it up. I stick it back up my ass. There's hardly any Vaseline anymore. It's like all been like it's come off since it's come out of my ass. Stick it back up and it cuts me instantly. And I'm like over the toilet and blood just starts ticking out of my ass, like into the toilet bowl, like this like phlegmy looking blood from my ass. I'm like, fuck. So I get Kleenex and I literally start stuffing my ass like it's a tampon, and it kind of absorbs all the blood. So finally they take me, like hours later, they take me up to the housing unit. And before that you have to get searched. So they make you, like I had to show my hair, my ears, show everything. And then you have to lift your balls up, and then you have to squat and cough and go and do a healthy one. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's not so that balloons of drugs will fall out of your ass. They want to know if you have a weapon, because if you have a weapon, it'll become like, dismantled, and it'll like make you bleed. People put like big shanks up their ass, and when you cough like that, it moves it and it'll cut you. So I go, and I'm like kind of holding onto my stomach so this thing doesn't fall out of me. They're like, one more time, and I'm like, and I make it. So thank God. So I leave this little area, and it's like 3 stalls. There's a guy with like an AR-15, like standing, like, right off to the distance. They don't have like gun towers at this place, but in this particular section of MDCLA, some guy stands there with a gun. It's the only time I ever saw a cop with a gun at this institution. But and they had like a dog. So I'm like, okay, I got it. So they give me my linen, and I walk into my housing unit. Now, it looks just like a prison setup. It's like 2 tiers, 2-man cells. It's probably, 80 men in the unit. There's a few phones, there's some showers, there's some computer terminals because they have email in the feds. And I'm looking at these guys, and they look hardcore, just straight up gangbangers. Now, at the time, there were a lot of big RICOs and conspiracies that had just happened. The Mongol Outlaw Biker Club had just been indicted. There was like 20 of those guys in the unit. 18th Street had just been indicted. MS-13, Hawaiian Gardens. In my case, I had 109 co-defendants. So it's just a big mix of like these different groups. And they gave me, my cellie was a paisa. He spoke some English, but not the best English. He was just like an older Mexican guy. And he was actually my co-defendant. I just never met him. He's on the same conspiracy case as me, and he's kicking heroin, right? So I go in my cell, I meet him. He's just sitting there like shivering in bed, kicking. I'm Malias, fool. So he's, Malias is like dope sick. That's what like Hispanics say. And so I find like some white guy comes up to me, and he's like the shot caller for the whites. He's like my age, youngster. 23 at the time. He's like probably 25, 26. And he's like, hey man, these are the politics. Can't drink behind black people. Can't smoke behind black people. Can't play sports with black people. It's basically don't do anything with black people, to sum up all the politics. Very racist. I'm not a racist guy, but that's just prison politics are like that. So I'm like, hey man, what if I have something? Where should I stash it? He's like, oh, you got something? So I take the plug out of my ass, I wash it in the sink, I break him off a little heroin. He tells me, put it in a baby powder bottle. He said they hardly ever raid the cells, but if they do with dogs, they're not going to smell it, and they're not going to open it. It's the best place to put it. I'm like, okay. So I put it in there. I break my cellie off a little heroin. I do a little heroin and some of the methadone powder, and I go to sleep. Now the next day, back in 2009, the feds would give you methadone for 3 days. So they gave me a 30 milligram dose my first day, 20 the second, and 10 the third. So the next morning I wake up, I get my dose, and you eat, like the dining areas like in the unit. So you eat at these tables, same tables you play like pinochle or spades at, play chess at. And right after meal, 40 cops run in. Everybody to the rec yard. They're raiding the cell. I'm like, oh my God, I have the dope in my cell. So we all have to go to this rec yard. They have canine dogs, and they're going through the unit. I'm just like, oh my God, this kid probably told on me. So we're kind of like sitting there. Everyone's like all worried. They're like, man, I hope they don't get my extra blankets. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, God damn, I hope they don't find my drugs and I get 5 more fucking years in federal prison. But they shook us down, and I think it was just a random search. They didn't find it, and I was like, thank God. So the next few days, I'm kind of like people like, words spreads pretty quickly that I brought some heroin in. So I'm selling that. I'm stacked up with commissary. I get a radio, I get sweatpants, everything that I need to be set up. On the third day, and I'm calling my parents, I'm calling Jenny. Everyone's like, you're going to get through this. I had told Jenny, I said, hey, here's a letter from my mom and dad. And if I don't come back, if I don't get bail, give it to them. It's best if it comes from me through this letter. And, the letter basically explained like, hey, I love you. This isn't your fault that I turned out the way that I did. And this is what happened. If you're reading this letter, then I didn't get out of jail. And that's what happened. So they're all telling me I'm going to get out. My bail hearing's coming up in a couple weeks. Now I know I'm about to be deathly sick. So the sickness kicks in about the third or fourth day. Methadone has like a 24-hour shelf life. But those small doses and the heroin helped kind of quell all that. But by day 3, I start getting sick. Now, first it starts off just like normal heroin sickness. My nose starts running. My skin's crawling. I'm getting indecisive skin temperature. Be super hot, super cold. I'm very achy. I feel really sick. Feel really anxious, really depressed. And, I'm sitting in my cell. By the way, my cellie, he was one of my co-defendants, and he knew that I was doing heroin. I was just putting the tar in a spoon, adding a little water, stirring it up with a pen cap, and then putting it in my nose like that. That's how I was doing it. They also had needles there, but at that period, I wasn't doing that. I didn't even ask for it. I was just doing it like that. And my cellie was like, my sister, she come and visit me. She bring me more chiva. Just give me some. I'm like, all right. So I'm giving him, I split what I had with him. Stupid thing to do. His sister never came, of course. So like day 3 or 4 is when I start kicking. And I remember it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I think that I started kicking the benzos too, because I started hallucinating. I was looking up at the ceiling and lightning was coming out of the ceiling. And I knew that I was hallucinating. And I'm on the top bunk, just sitting there like shaking. My eyes are huge, and I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing stuff coming out of the ceiling. And my cellie below me is kicking heroin, so he's like groaning. So I have to take my mattress down and I just put it by the toilet because I'm puking so often that I don't want to keep jumping, down from bed. Now, that's like the first night, completely hellacious. By the time the sun comes up, I'm in so much pain, I can barely take it. I don't even leave the cell. I'm just sitting in there shivering, I'm vomiting. And then the bone stuff starts happening, which is very signatory for methadone. It feels like your bones are literally gonna pop out of your skin. And I'm laying in bed and I just start screaming, right? So now the whole day goes by, I'm thrashing, I'm hallucinating. I'm seeing the ceiling coming apart. I'm seeing blood on the walls, tripping out. I attribute that to the benzos, right? This is becoming the worst kick that I've ever been through. And so that night, I feel like my bones are breaking at the seam of my skin. And it's like maybe 10 o'clock at night, and I just start, I'm like, I can't take it. I can't take it. And my cellie can barely speak English, and he's just like, no. He's saying some weird piece of shit. I don't even know what he's saying. And so I'm sitting there, I take my pants off, and I sit on the toilet, and I'm literally having diarrhea while I'm puking. And I'm like crying. I'm like puking, shitting, crying simultaneously. And my paisa cellie starts like singing me some like Spanish love lullaby or something, he's like amigo na na na, and I'm just like sitting there kicking while this dude's singing this weird paisa shit, and I'm just like, hey man, you gotta stop, man, you're making it worse. And him singing, me puking, me hallucinating, I can't take it anymore, man. Like, I feel like I'm gonna die. So I start banging on the cell door. I'm like, help me! Help me! And you're just like hearing, there's all these Mongols there and all these other tough guys, and you're hearing people go, shut the fuck up! This is like a big no-no in like a jail or prison setting. Finally, the guard comes. He's like, what's up, man? He's talking to me in the cell. I'm like, dude, I'm kicking, I'm dying. He's like, well, you're not the first person that I've seen kick, and you're not going to be the last. You got to just tough it out. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm dying. Man down. Man down. He's like, stop saying that, man. I'll get the nurse to come. I'm like, I need help. So the nurse ends up coming an hour later. Like at this point, I've puked up. So like now I'm just like my stomach linings are receding and I'm just puking up pure acidic bile. And I'm just like, finally the nurse comes, tears are streaming down my face. And I'm like, please help me, ma'am, please. And she's like, listen, we know that you're coming off methadone. I pulled some strings and I got you something. I'm like, are you serious? Like, you know, it's kind of like when you're dope sick and you score the heroin and as soon as you have it in your hand, you feel well. It's like the power of the fucking mind. You just like feel better. Just knowing that I was about to get something, I'm just instantly feel better. So I'm like, thank you so much. They opened the meal slot where they would put the tray if you're on a lockdown. She's like, open your hand. And I open it and she puts a pill in my hand and it's like this blimp sized pill. And she's like, it's 800 milligrams. It's the strong kind. And I look at it and I'm like, what is it? And she's like, ibuprofen. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That's what you're giving me? The strong one? 800 milligrams of ibuprofen? And she's just like, that's all I can give you. So she gives it to me, right? And I take it, and of course I puke it up almost immediately, so I don't even get any relief from that. So the next morning I wake up, and I have to shower, you know what I mean? Like, people are, like, starting to tell me that, like, the little shot callers, like, look, man, you have to shower. I'm like, all right. So I go to the shower. Everybody's, like, mad dogging me, too. Everybody that I was, you know, all these, like, biker guys are, like, they're all looking at me all crazy because I kept everybody up all night. And I go to the shower, I'm showering, and it's absolutely torturous. It literally feels like the shower is like raining like razor blades on me. That's how, like, I felt like a 3rd-degree burn victim, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like crying. It was like some like, you know, I was like, I'm like scrubbing myself, and I go to fart, and it's like, and I'm like, and like, you know, I thought maybe I might shit a little bit. But I didn't, so like I got more confident, so I went to do another one, and I was like, and shit just literally sneezed out of my asshole, and like sprayed the shower, and I'm like, ah. So I'm like on my hands and knees trying to hide it, because I know that if these inmates know that I shit in the shower, I'm gonna get beat up. I already kept them up all night, right? So at one point, the shot caller's like, hey, I gotta get at you, man. Cruise to my cell upstairs. So I'm walking up to his cell. He's probably about to chew me out for you know, keeping everyone up all night. I'm like feebly walking up these stairs. I walk up. I'm holding that rail, and then I go to fart, and I literally like know that I'm gonna shit. So I put my hand over my ass, and I'm like trying to like squeeze my butt cheeks together so that I don't fart. And all of a sudden I fart, and it makes me literally stumble, like almost not a cartwheel, but like imagine like an egg roll, like, you know, like a sideways flip. And I fall down all the stairs, fall down. So like everyone saw me fall. And as soon as I fall, I have a seizure. I start like seizing up. I start foaming at the mouth, and I shit myself on the floor. And as soon as I shit myself, I can smell it. And it's so disgusting that it makes me throw up. So I'm literally laying in the middle of the unit floor. There's puke all over me, and I just shit myself. And at this point, a bunch of nurses rushed in, and they put me on a gurney, and they sent me to an outside hospital. And that was probably because I fell down the stairs and had a seizure. Yeah, I know it's getting dark. I'm sorry. I wanted to get you guys this video tonight, so sorry that it got dark in the middle of it. But they ended up taking me to this place called White Memorial Hospital in East LA. And the doctors are like, what methadone clinic were you at? I'm like, I was at Aegis in Santa Barbara. They're like, okay, well, we have to call them, and we need to verify that you're actually on methadone, and then we can give you some to taper down. I was like, okay, cool. So that takes like 4 hours, but they finally call and like verify that I was on 120 milligrams. I was taking 180 with the take homes, but the clinic was giving me like 120. So they didn't realize that I had been kicking for like almost a week. You know, they thought that I was just coming in like that. So they come in and they give me the white pills. They're called methadose, little 10 milligram white pills. and they give me the methadose. They give me 12 of them at once, so 120 milligrams, thinking that I'm literally just coming off it. But I hadn't been on it for so long that it actually gets me loaded. And they have me shackled to the bed with 2 U.S. Marshals, like armed U.S. Marshals guarding me. And as soon as the methadone kicked in, I remember we were watching 2.5 Men on the TV, like this huge smile just, twisted on my face. And I'm like, they're like, "Are you feeling better?" I'm like, "Man, you have no fucking clue, man." So, I end up staying in the hospital for, I want to say, about 2 weeks, and they're tapering me off. So they start me at 120 and they're going to take me all the way down. And my attorney comes to visit me. And he says, you can't go to court while you're in hospital like this, while the U.S. Marshals are guarding you. I'm still in custody, but I'm in the hospital. He said, "I cannot get you to the bail hearing unless you're out of the hospital." So I told the doctors that I wanted to leave because my attorney was saying that I had a good chance of getting bailed out. And the doctors were like, "There's no way that you should leave. That's totally against medical advice. And once you leave, you're not going to be able to come back, and you're going to have to kick cold turkey." But in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm going to get bail. So I'm like, no, I want to go. So I signed myself up out of the hospital, and I had it good in there. They're giving me, French toast and eggs and bacon. I'm on a reclining bed. I'm taking methadone. They're giving me benzos. Like, I'm doing good in there. But I wanted to get bail so bad. So they end up discharging me for the hospital after like 2 weeks. And they take me back to MDCLA. Within 24 hours of getting in the hospital, I start feeling the kick again. And I'm supposed to go to court the next day. I wake up and I'm so violently sick, right? They end up taking me to court, and I go and I ask, my attorney's like, "Okay, this is your actual judge. I think there's a good chance that you're going to get bail." I'm like, "Okay." Literally, the U.S. Marshals that escorted me into the court give me a bag, and I'm having to puke in that bag periodically while I'm in court. So the judge is like talking to my attorney, and I'm like, "Bleh!" And my attorney's like, "Look, he needs to be in like an actual like medical facility, and his family's willing to put up the equity bond for him." And the judge says, "There's no way that I'm going to let a drug addict like that back on the street." So I got denied bail, and I had to go back to MDCLA. And now I can't go back to the hospital. I can't get bail, and I'm forced to kick that habit cold turkey. And it's getting dark, and you can't see me, so we will continue this in part 2 of my years in federal prison. Thank you so much for watching.